Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, I have with me Sophie Duffy. She's the Group Head of Data Analytics at Kingfisher, the international home improvement company. Sophie has a long history and experience in customer and digital analytics, and we're going to talk about how Kingfisher are using that to sustain the business growth that they've seen over the last few years. So, Sophie, welcome along to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So I like to start with a bit of introduction with my guests. So it'd be great if you could share a bit more about you, a little bit about your backgrounds. I think it's some really interesting stuff that helps explain why you've ended up in the role that you're in at Kingfisher. So yeah, if we kick off with that, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. So I currently lead data analytics at Kingfisher. So that covers customer and digital analytics. I started my career at Nectar, which is part of Sainsbury's, so the loyalty card. I spent nearly 10 years there in various different roles, but all very much rooted in customer understanding and customer data. I sort of ended my time there leading our kind of retail consultancy team. So a lot of work with the suppliers into Sainsbury's, so the likes of Unilever, PepsiCo, Heineken, all those usual suspects, and the type of kind of category management work that goes into running grocery retail, so ranging, promotion, segmentation, brand planning, all that type of thing, and the data products that enable that. I then moved to Nike. I did two different roles there. So I led the customer insights and analytics for the UK, which was largely around ensuring that we gave our members or our customers the right kind of products and content and services that they need to kind of make sport a daily habit and keep their lives active and healthy. Obviously, there's massive varying degrees of how much people do that. And then I ended my time there leading our kind of member growth strategy implementation across Europe. So how we start to put the customer or the member, in Nike's case, at the center of things like promotional strategy and liquidation strategy, or putting more customer data in the hands of store colleagues, or driving more kind of customer-led marketing as well. So the test and learn and the processes that go with that. And then I joined Kingfisher about a year ago to lead customer and digital analytics for Group. So in the digital space, that covers all of our e-commerce analytics, so digital trading analytics, our digital marketing and performance marketing, conversion rate optimization, all these types of areas. And then our digital product analytics, so our website optimization, A/B testing, search, and our digital fulfillment route analytics as well. And then in the customer space, our kind of traditional kind of customer analytics, how we understand the base of our customers, the changes that are happening across the entirety of our markets across Europe, and how we build solutions to help give our customers what they need and put them at the heart of business solutions. So things like churn, lapsing, predictive lifetime value, that sort of thing. So that's nice and broad,
broad role there for sure. I'd love to dig into some of those sort of areas you're responsible for. I'd love to get into some of those. It'd be great. And it's a great experience. I didn't actually tell you when we met before recording that I must have been 2000 and what would it have been? Maybe 2005 or 6. I represented Debenhams at Nectar. So we used to go to the quarterly review call for Debenhams on behalf of them when they were part of the scheme. So yes, I have some roots back in.
I think they were one of the founding or one of the very first partners. Actually.
There was 4. I don't recall now. Debenhams, BP, a couple of other Sainsbury's. That's right.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Like it might be Argos. I don't remember now. But great. Kingfisher. Can you just talk about them for a little bit? Just sort of your part of Group. I know there's some structure under that.
Yeah, absolutely. Kingfisher is the home improvement retailing group based on the FTSE 100 out of the UK. And within that group, we have a number of different retailing brands that form our company. So within the UK, we'll be very familiar with B&Q, much larger kind of brand for all of us, and Screwfix as well. We've got TradePoint, which is more of a trade-focused retailer. And then across Europe, in France, we have Castorama France and then Brico Dépôt. Castorama France, again, very DIY focused. Brico Dépôt, a bit more of a kind of discounter, slightly trade focused. And then in Spain and Portugal, we have Brico Dépôt as well. And then in Poland, Castorama Poland and Brico Dépôt Romania as well. So we have a number of kind of market leading home improvement brands and retailers across Europe that form part of the Kingfisher Group.
Is Kingfisher essentially sort of the holding sort of group that acquired those businesses and have brought them together, or did Kingfisher spin out of one of those retailers?
It's essentially the kind of holding group that they all kind of feed into, I guess. But they all operate as independent retailers. So essentially, you know, for me, I work Kingfisher, which a lot of people might think is kind of brand or one retailer, but it's actually 12 across kind of 8 markets, so it's very kind of vast. But at Kingfisher, the way we operate from group is to power our retailers from our expertise within the group function. So a lot of our retailers, they operate and they're running their business on the day-to-day, and they run the analytics from their teams, and then the group functions, we come in and we support from a data tech engineering point of view to help really supercharge the strategy and the growth that's needed.
Right, got it. And it's interesting, I'm sure we'll come to this as well, that normally in a group you want to try and get some efficiencies across things like marketing or understanding customers and cross-sell and upsell, but I guess there may not be some of that. There may be some opportunity there, but less so if there's sort of quite independent brands in quite different geographies.
Yeah, there's definitely opportunity for that from a tech and kind of data point of view. I think from a customer point of view, it becomes more interesting because the customers are very different by market, and we have to really respect that to make sure we're doing the right thing for them. And ultimately, our kind of retailers and our brands, they know their customers and their retailers better than any of us. So how do we work with them to really give those customers exactly what they need, using the scale and efficiency that we build within the group?
Yeah, got it. Really interesting. In terms of, before we get into kind of some of the kind of analytics work that you're doing and where you've been focusing attention, what's the kind of context of the home improvement market? So I know myself and people I know invested quite a lot in that instead of holidays for the last couple of years because of COVID and things like that. So I imagine there's been a bit of an uptick from that, or a big uptick from that. So what's the context of the home improvement market? I guess sort of pre, during, and post, if I can call it that, pandemic, because I think that'll give some good context to the analytics work that you've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's definitely been enormous growth within the home improvement market in the last 2 years because of, in large part, the pandemic. And I think, you know, like most retail as well, we've a huge shift to digital penetration. So I think we're at 18% digital penetration right now. 2 years ago, it was 8%. So that's just an enormous growth. Again, people are moving online for what they need. In terms of the customers, we still kind of see broadly, you know, at a very top level, we've got our kind of everyday DIYers that are probably like you and I, and then our tradesmen that are, you know, professional services within home improvement.
Right.
Those groups have broadly stayed the same, but we've seen just an enormous influx, especially within our DIYers and the types of people that maybe would have waited a few more years before embarking on certain DIY projects, but because they've been at home and they've all the time through lockdown and things like that, they're improving things at home and they're taking on DIY tasks that maybe they wouldn't have ordinarily. So they're coming into our brands and retailers and really buying, you know, across different breadth. They're researching more. So we're seeing an influx of these new types of customers that are kind of doing more and being more adventurous, and they're going on this journey over the last couple of years and building up their skills. And we've definitely seen that shift from a macro point of view of spend, you know, away from things like eating out, etc., and into investing in your home, and we've benefited from that. So that's generally how the kind of the context of the market has progressed through the pandemic, and we see some of those trends will maintain as we hopefully exit the pandemic and move into the new challenges that are coming down the road as well.
Well, that I think that's the interesting area, because I'm certainly seeing quite a lot of industries and organizations that did thrive during pandemic. I'm thinking people like Netflix and the events, online events platform, Hopin, a whole bunch of other organizations that had this kind of like exponential growth during pandemic, valuations like through the roof, membership numbers through the roof, users through the roof. And actually now they're seeing a bit of either a bit of a drop off or a big drop off. And does this change? And I guess, is there a strategy around, this is why we talked about sustaining this business growth, because is there some natural drop off that will happen, or actually can have you got a new sort of benchmark for what good sort of performance looks like? Is there a view on where that's going?
So we've done quite a bit of work to try and understand exactly those things. Is there an expected drop off, and how do we mitigate that? Or should we anticipate that we can maintain this level of growth ongoing to a certain degree? We've looked at kind of the market, and the challenges coming up now are no longer necessarily the pandemic. People are traveling more, their spend is going to other things, but the cost of living crisis is a huge one for us, and how people prioritize their spend within their household. Inflationary costs as well has an impact on our business, like everybody else's. But we see from some of the work that we've done that actually within a household budget, home improvement spend is being prioritized within that, and other spend deprioritized, as people's spending is being crunched really over the next few months. So we're confident that the level of spending within home improvement will increase, or will maintain, sorry. So how we then work to optimize that spend to make sure it's right for the customer and what they need to achieve, with the challenges of cost price increases and inflation as well, especially again in our trades market. How do we ensure that our tradespeople can buy the right tools and equipment when the costs are going up, and we're giving them what they need with efficiency and speed and choice? So all of these things factor into our thinking, but we have looked at the market to try and understand how we should be supporting customers through this kind of end of pandemic, but into some pretty big other challenges coming down the road.
Yeah, great. Brilliant. I mean, it'd be good to sort of kick about the kind of work that those sort of, use cases or business opportunities, I think more specifically, that you've worked on, because I think it's some really interesting things you can do with customer and digital. And as you say, that shift of 8% to 18% creates a huge amount of new analytics and new customers that are engaging in a different way. So it'd be good to sort of understand some of the key business areas that you've been focusing on, and what analytics work has helped sort of play a part in improving those.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, we're really trying to cater for our customers across key things like speed and choice. So in terms of choice, we want to make sure we've got the right product for our customers. And I guess from a data and analytics point of view, it's understanding all the variables that go into those products. So it's complex in its sense that you could buy a screwdriver, or you could buy an entire kitchen. So the breadth of products and the detail that goes behind those is really vital to ensure that we can execute kind of data science models, or build products, or deep dive insights that can understand that. So for example, again, if you're buying something, a shelf that you want to put up, the details about the measurements and dimensions need to be absolutely spot on, so that your project doesn't completely fall apart at the first hurdle. And then how do we also understand things like energy efficiency is another huge area that's of massive importance right now, and making sure that the right detail of these products is in our data system. So building up this product detail catalog across all of our products, across all retailers, and work on building algorithms that help us understand true product suitability across a number of different variables. So about 15 years ago, when we did product substitutability on things like tea bags in, hot beverages, we're looking at an 80 pack versus 120, or a brand versus own label, or decaf versus caf. We're now feeding in significant amount of variables about a product to then try and predict how the substitution happens, to build an algorithm that gives a true substitution based on whether you're looking at energy efficiency, size, ease of use to put up, views, 5-star reviews, written reviews, all these different elements that feed into this tooling that will help us give customers more choices on different products and the right choices as well at the right time. So that's one example of how we're using data and engineering to bolster our data itself, to then use that through our modeling and our data science to help drive our business forward.
Interesting. So that's a kind of product data set that's sort of almost a governance and a data management point about, in order for us to better provide the right products, in order to make sure we have the right sort of range, in order to make sure we've got the right, the right 3 on the shelf rather than 15, to give enough choice but not too much. You've got to get a strong set of product attributes set up in the first place, so that you've got that variable that you can choose from. Has that in its own right been a lot of work to sort of get right, or and I imagine you've got a lot of suppliers as well that sort of feed into those sort of product decisions.
So all of the data, I guess, feeds into understanding those product attributes. It can be very disparate and disjointed. And again, we're talking about different retailers in different markets.
Yeah.
So, and you're right, there's supplier data that goes in on branded products. There's data on products that are own branded. So there's all these different variables that, even if you try and sit down and feed them all in, it's very difficult to capture them all. So that's where the power of combining kind of data engineering with data science to work on this together helps build the data set that's needed to enable the algorithms. But it does take time, and it is challenging because of the complexity and the scale really of the business.
Yeah, I imagine. Is there some other examples where sort of once you've got that data in place and some of the work that you've done to support those decisions, that maybe from the customer lens? I think you talked about a good sort of product lens there, but is there any sort of customer analytics that you've done to help understand, as you said, sort of the occasional DIY like you and I? I know from my own personal experience, you walk into a home improvement store and just get overwhelmed by the choice and the aisles, and then you get to the bit you want, and there's so much, so many different options, and there's sort of a bit of anxiety that creeps in about, am I going to buy the right thing? And so any of the sort of understanding the more kind of occasional consumer and how they shop you.
So like I said, very broadly at its top line level, we look at DIY versus tradesman, but then as we, I guess, move into the occasional DIY shopper, the weekend warrior, whatever we want to call them, we start to try and understand those customers. In some of our work, we're looking at the project they're on. Rather than necessarily traditional behavioral segmentation, which we do use in some areas and has its role, we've also started to look at the types of projects that a customer might be on. And you could be on multiple projects at once. So your basket could contain multiple projects. So for example, you've got these kind of big show-stopping projects that you might do every few years, like renovating your garden, or you're doing a new kitchen, new bathroom, huge stuff. But you've got more everyday projects like indoor house plants or new potting of your garden plants or some garden furniture. That's quite seasonal, but also, painting, top shops of screwdrivers or, rebooting your toolbox, that type of thing. So we look, there's a significant number of different projects that we look at, try to understand customers that are shopping these projects or predicting the next best project as well. And also trying to predict, if some of these projects don't happen in the future, what's the impact of that? And how do we then mitigate that impact and really try and encourage that project shopping, and try and be helpful to our customers? You may be buying this project, but actually, have you also thought about buying into these categories as well to enhance the project that you're doing? So we look at all the various data points that we've got to understand predictors of that behavior or that intention, and then trying to meet that at the right time with the right choice as well.
How much of your customer base that you are able to analyze is a known customer? You know, a member of a scheme or a signed up newsletter, you know, subscriber or something like that, versus the anonymous, the cash buyer, the card, the card, you know, user, the credit card user, whatever. Yeah, do you get a good percentage, do you think?
It varies by retailer. So some
Right.
of our retailers have quite high known customer coverage and some less so, and that's
Right.
just the nature of their retailing strategy. So, you know, if you're one of our discounting or slightly more discounted retailers, then you're going to have slightly less, and that's similar in any industry,
Right.
because there's less of that build up of kind of loyalty style customer data. However, what we are working towards is how we use the various points within our data to build out more of a profile of customers, especially in the digital world, where we can use these indicators of you know, how much they search product, sorry,
Right.
and how those search results move them across the website, how they're researching, the time it takes. So we can start to build profiles, not necessarily with our traditional or the traditional loyalty style data,
Right.
and then build audiences and speak to them in that way. So I guess from some of the broader segmentation style work, we're looking at known customers, but we can enhance that through connecting our data set through to customer and digital together, which is where we're working towards with a number of the retailers that we've got in the group.
And do you see a kind of relationship between or a disconnect between online versus sort of you know, physical stores? So I know from my experience that they can often be treated quite separately, but there's a real intrinsic relationship, certainly in clothing retail, which is where a lot of my experience has been in retail, where people, you know, browse online or try on in store and then buy it online, you know, all sorts of sort of like weird, or look like weird ways of shopping, but actually quite natural and human. Do you have a similar relationship with you know, that kind of browsing online from home? And maybe I'm talking about the occasional rather than the trade, but you know, that sort of looking online but picking up from store and bringing it back and returns, is that relationship sort of known and clear? And do you work that?
I'd say again, it varies. So we know in some of our markets, like Poland, for example, our customers use online to do a lot of research, and then they do go in store and purchase.
Right.
However, in other markets, there's quite a high level of research and intent online, and then the purchase online. But it also depends by category as well. Things like buying a whole kitchen is in all likelihood going to happen at the moment in store, but how we look in the future, try and service that need through our online, which might be through kind of you know, VR headsets or building out CAD, you know, opportunities all through online, is a service that we can build. But for us at Kingfisher, our stores are at the center of our e-commerce. That's our strategy.
Right.
So we fulfill our orders from stores. We see our stores as kind of a micro center for digital fulfillment. And so I think within the home improvement industry, the stores are always going to be a vital part of the customer journey, because there's so many things that you want to go and look at and touch and view and speak to someone directly about, because there's a level of real expertise, especially with our DIYers, that you want to get that reassurance from. So our strategy is very much about putting the stores at the center of our e-commerce, and also really respecting the role of stores and looking at e-commerce as a complementary part of that. In terms of our data, we are working towards connecting those two more from a customer perspective, and how we do that. And loyalty card data is a really big part of that, because in stores it's much easier to get customer data through that. And having these big groups and sample sizes of customers that we can connect from store through to online to get this sort of 360 view, or online to offline, or you know, whatever the latest buzzword is, to try and understand that journey in more detail. But we definitely see through our online indicators, you know, how people research, their intent to buy, and then whether or not they buy. So we have understanding of that research process through to purchasing.
Brilliant. Awesome. I am intrigued by how you're kind of set up for doing all of this, and you're sort of in some ways you've got a sort of a hub and spoke model. Certainly from a group view, you're a hub and you provide, you know, support and help and guidance and a service and data and tools to your spokes, i.e. your the business, the brands within the Kingfisher Group. But yeah, just intrigued about how that kind of works in practice, how you're set up in the center, and how you interact with the different teams that you support.
Yeah, so within our group data function, we broadly split into three areas. So there's analytics, which is my area, data science, data marketing and data marketing automation, and then data platform. So those four areas kind of work hand in hand across a number of different projects and deliveries, and then we partner with our engineering and tech teams as well to support the development in some of these areas.
Right.
So that whole organization was created about 8 months ago to build out each of those functions. Has been and continues to be rapid scaling across each of those areas. So how we bring together technology and engineering with data to really enable our strategy for e-commerce growth and business growth is a key kind of part of what we're trying to achieve, and our skill sets within those teams is a huge enabler to that. So that's one way of doing it, the right people, and we continue to bring people in, and we're hiring for lots of talent across those areas. And then equally how we start to connect our data points and our data sets as well, where our data platform leads that work alongside engineering, and then teams like mine and data science get to go in and leverage that to build great products or do great work. So those are the kind of broadly the two areas that are really helping us supercharge our data capabilities.
And how's your team, so your part of the team, made up? So what kind of skills have you got, and capabilities do you have to deliver sort of customer and digital analytics?
Yeah, so we have in my team, we've got a pretty big digital analytics team, and those skills from an analytical point of view are very much, there's a huge digital focus. So our web analytics and experience within that space and e-commerce analytics is a huge part of what we're doing. But the kind of data technology element that forms part of that, so how we understand our data layer and the tagging, and then feeds through to what we're reporting on and analyzing, is a really huge part of our job, and working with our partners in the measurement team to do that. Right. And we're starting to work more with our data platform team, ingest digital data into that platform so that we can work with it more easily and build the analytical environments to allow us to get to that. So that's a huge project for us, and comes with a lot of complexity, especially, you know, the digital landscape and data landscape is constantly changing. So there's a lot of things that get thrown into the road that we have to navigate. So those are the types of skills that within the team, really understanding digital breadth, the ability to go into the data and explore it and be curious, connect different data sets from different sources. And then in the customer space, there's a lot of work again from a data backend point of view of understanding how we can single customer view through to our digital data and putting out profiles and cohort understanding based on that. Right. Leveraging our CDPs for audience selection and supporting our data marketing and marketing automation technology, the right audience selections and understanding there that achieves what our retailers want to achieve with their customers. And then I guess the more kind of predictive and advanced analytics techniques such as churn, and really understanding that. And that's super important as we've brought in so many new customers that we have a detailed understanding of that, and we can predict it and print it. And lifetime value as well. And given the lifetime we've talked about is quite very dependent on the customer. It could be one massive project every 3 years. It could be going one weekend a month and picking up various different things. It's project dependent. It's trade. It's DIY. That's quite complex and requires a kind of a complexity of analytics to achieve that.
Yeah. Yeah, and skill sets to understand behavior, understand products, understand pricing. It's kind of quite a lot of different components that come
variables. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And are they do you tend to sort of fill that team with very experienced people, or are you kind of trying to mix a new blood into it to kind of generate sort of a bit more diversity and a bit more sort of broader thinking? And also, I don't know, do you have any connections with universities or any graduate schemes or anything like that? Or, as I say, or are you sort of really focusing on, given the pace of change, the kind of high end experienced folk within the team?
I'd say that. And so we're a brand new team, so we absolutely need experience. So the two leaders of the digital and the customer teams are very experienced, have a huge kind of tenure within their specialisms.
Right.
And then within the team, we have kind of varying levels of experience and varying levels of analytical skill as well. The digital world is very tool driven. It's not traditional analytical languages that you might have found in other areas like customer or others. So how we have the experience to optimize all the different digital tools that provide us insights and analytics as well is a key skill set. But we're also hiring, entry level skills as well. So we're working with Kubrick, who provide, skilled analytical candidates for us. So we have actually next week 3 people joining the team from Kubrick. Brilliant. Who we've worked with to kind of get to the point where they do specialist training, and then we feed in different types of training that we need with digital. So we've got a real breadth, and diversity has been a big how we recruit. So we've worked with women in data, we've used their jobs board, we've done that each of the areas, not just my team. So we're trying to definitely get a breadth of background and experience. We have to meet the needs of what we need to achieve, but because it's quite a big team and it's continuing to grow, I think we have the luxury of breadth. If it was a very small team, it would probably be quite different.
Yeah, for sure. No, well, that's great to hear. And from a personal perspective, you've had some great experience in some great well-known brands, and obviously the interaction with Nectar, then interaction with lots of other brands as well in the retail space, and your time at Nike. How sort of different or the same indeed is the work at Kingfisher, and sort of what excites you about the work that you're doing and the work going forward?
I think broadly retail has a lot of similar themes that a lot of retailers are grappling with. And Kingfisher is no different. I sort of think about when I worked with Nectar and Sainsbury's in the food industry, it was quite a challenging time because Aldi and Lidl had come on board. It was massive pressure on pricing and again choice and making sure that was all right, and supply chain efficiency. But the main thread within that was doing what's right for the customer. Equally, when I was at Nike is when the pandemic hit. You could no longer go to a gym. You couldn't train your friends. You couldn't go, play football with your kids. You had to do everything in your 4 walls. But putting the customer at the forefront of the decisioning there was really important. And it's the same at Kingfisher. These massive changes happening in people's lives. I think the passion for me in my career and the thread that's run through all of that is working for companies that put their customers first and their customers' needs first, and utilizing the data and technology to help with that. I think at Fisher it's really exciting because a lot of, they are traditional retail, I suppose, on the face of it, and they're a huge retailing business, and you often get this level of significant investment in data and technology and this real customer first attitude. So it's great and very exciting to be a part of, and there's a huge breadth for me, which is good. So I'm learning a lot, things like fulfillment routes and supply chain and all these different components of digital. It's great. So it's very exciting. Lots of similar challenges, but the main thing for me is that the customer is always put at the forefront of the decision making, and that's my background, and that's what I like to see where I work. So it's good.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like you're early on in your career there, and it sounds like lots to do and exciting time to be there. So really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been great to hear about your background, your story, and what's going on at Kingfisher. I think there's some really exciting changes happening there, and as a very novice but keen home improvement person and terrible DIYer, I'm glad that you're at least trying to think about what the likes
how
of
to help you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll be tapping you up for some ideas soon, no doubt.
Very good. Thanks
So
so
yeah,
much for having me.
no worries. Thanks for coming on the show, and thanks everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed that, and we'll catch you again soon.